where the veil between this world and the next grows thin. The things that whisper in the dark are given voice. From the cryptic candlelit studios, deep in the Indiana forests, your host, Matt Wilson, and his spectral producer, Juniper Ravenwood, unearth the forbidden, the forgotten, and the fearsome. So, still your heart, dim the light, and listen closely. For once you tune into the shadow frequency, you may never tune out.
Tonight's file smells like wet stone, old smoke, and something that should have burned out decades ago, but somehow didn't. Centralia, Pennsylvania wasn't wiped off the map by one blast, one collapse, one terrible night. It was eaten slowly, street by street, house by house, breath by breath. A fire slipped under the town in 1962, found the old coal veins, and just kept going, like the earth had decided to keep a grudge warm forever. And what gets me is this: when the ground starts steaming under your feet, when the roads crack open and the air itself turns wrong, what do you even call that? A disaster? A haunting? Or a place that has begun rejecting the people living on top of it? What do you guys think?
I'll tell you what it sounds like, June. It sounds absolutely cursed, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Not in the storybook sense either. I mean the sort of place where everything looks normal, right up until the land gives you one warning too late. A town losing to something it can't even see underground is properly unnerving.
And that's the hook tonight, because Centralia gives you both versions of the nightmare at once. On one side, there's the official story: coal fire, gas, subsidence, evacuations, money thrown at a problem that would not stay buried. On the other side, there's the legend version. Whispers that the town was marked long before the flames found it, and that what happened beneath those streets felt less like bad luck and more like a sentence being carried out.
Well, that's cheerful, isn't it? Nothing like opening the cabinet, finding a whole Pennsylvania borough that got turned into a slow-motion warning label.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this one's got everything I love in a case. Real history, real damage, and just enough folklore clinging to it that you can't quite separate the fire from the feeling of it. Tonight we're heading into a town that didn't go dark all at once. It glowed from underneath.
Then let's open the file and see what was still smoldering inside. Matt, take it away.
You are tuned to the shadow frequency, where every whisper tells a story from beyond the veil. Hosted by Matt Wilson. Produced by Juniper Ravenwood. With Chris Beach. The darkness continues.
First off, thank you to Juniper for digging into the file cabinet and pulling out something that feels less like a folder and more like a heat source. And I mean that, because sitting in front of me right now, clipped right on top, is a printout of the Pennsylvania DEP's own Centralia mine fire chronology. It's as plain and official as government paperwork gets, and somehow that makes it creepier. Right there in black and white, May 1962, fire commences. The state says the fire was first reported on May 27, 1962, near a surface mine pit by the Oddfellows Cemetery. The most widely accepted version is that the borough personnel set a controlled trash fire, and because that old strip pit lacked a proper non-combustible barrier, the flame spread from trash into adjacent combustible material and then into the underground mine workings below. That is how the town starts losing a war to a thing no one can properly see. Not with thunder, not with prophecy, but with a small fire near a cemetery that found a way down. And once that fire reached the Buck Mountain coal bed, Centralia's problem stopped being a normal emergency and became something almost mythic in the worst possible way. Underground mine fires are hideous because they do not behave like the fires people understand. You can't just run a hose over them and call it done. They move through abandoned workings, follow air, follow fuel, slip behind walls of rock and under streets and yards. The DEP chronology says state and federal governments spent $3.3 million between 1962 and 1978 trying to control the fire with limited results. Think about that phrase, limited results. Nearly 2 decades of money, labor, digging, planning, and the thing is still under there, still eating, still finding oxygen, still advancing through the dark like it knows the map better than the people above it ever did. That's the part that chills me. The town was built on coal, made prosperous by coal, and now the coal underneath had become a hidden engine of ruin, burning where nobody could look it in the eye, and every year that passed made the ground feel a little less like ground. By the late 70s and early 80s, the file starts reading less like civic paperwork and more like a medical chart for a dying place. The Office of Surface Mining acquired impacted properties and ordered studies to see how far the fire might spread. Air quality monitoring began. And then comes 1983, and this is one of those years where the whole story seems to tilt. An OSM study estimated it would take $663 million to extinguish the fire. Route 66, a vital transportation link, suffered severe subsidence damage from the blaze below. The state stabilized the roadway at a cost of about $500,000, and even that was just another temporary answer to a permanent threat. Then, in 1984, Congress appropriated $42 million for voluntary acquisition and relocation because of noxious gases and subsidence. That is the moment when the case stops being about putting out a fire and becomes about moving human beings away from it. Not fixing the town, not saving it, getting people out before the town beneath the town won. And that is why Centralia gets under people's skin so deeply. It didn't die all at once. It emptied. From 1985 to 1991, the DEP says 545 residences and businesses were acquired and residents moved. Imagine that. Not as a statistic, but as a rhythm. Porches going quiet, curtains disappearing, kitchens cooling, one family after another deciding they could no longer trust the earth under the mailbox, under the church steps, under the bedroom floor. The timeline goes on to say the condemnation procedures followed. Route 66 was closed indefinitely because of fire damage, and from 1993 to the present, the fire continues to spread. That is not Gothic embellishment. That is the official wording. The fire continues to spread. There is something deeply wrong feeling about a town whose most terrifying resident does not live in a house or walk a road or answer to a name, because it is still down there now, moving through the old black veins beneath a place that learned too late that some fires do not stay where they are lit. And the worst part of it is, in Centralia, the horror was not above ground where you could face it. It was underneath, patient and invisible.
And that's what makes it awful. You can flee a building, but how do you flee the ground?
It's the helplessness of it, really. A town can barricade a road or lock a door, but you can't exactly argue with a fire under your feet.
And in the second half, we get into the moments when Centralia stopped feeling merely doomed and started feeling almost unreal. Juniper, take us into the break.
So far tonight, it's the kind of case that sits heavy. A town built on anthracite, a fire slipping underground, and then year after year of people realizing the danger wasn't passing through, it was staying put. I'm guessing a lot of listeners right now are wondering what they would have done. Stayed as long as possible or left the second the year started acting wrong. Chris, come on in.
Thanks, June. And yeah, this one gets under your skin a bit, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not some fleeting shadow in a window. It's a whole town being slowly pushed out by something burning beneath it. While you're with us, do give us a like and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on, because that really does help the algorithms find more strange souls like yourselves. You can follow The Shadow Frequency on Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Rumble, and all the major podcast directories. And head over to shadowfrequencypodcast.com for every episode, the companion blog, merch, show notes, and links to every platform we're on. You can also support the show by buying us a coffee there, and if you've got a story, you can reach out through the website by email or voice message that might end up on a future episode. Right then, back to Juniper.
All right, time to fire up the spectrocosmic message materializer, flipping the switches now. Let's see what comes rattling through the ether. Ah, there it is, a little note tapping at the glass from somewhere out in the static.
Message retrieved from the void.
Let's ease it open and see what our listener sent drifting in tonight. This one comes from Fran in Ontario. Says, I usually listen in the evening this time of year, especially in April when it's still a bit chilly and the rain's ticking against the windows. I'll make a tea, sit out on our enclosed back porch, and put on the show through Spotify while the light fades. There's just something about hearing your stories when spring is trying to arrive, but everything still feels a little gray and half awake outside. Especially love the hauntings, cursed places, and any episodes where folklore and real history get all tangled together. Those are always the ones that stick with me after the episode's over. Thanks for making late evenings feel just a little stranger in the best way. Keep the embers glowing, Fran from Ontario. That is a fantastic sign-off, Fran. Keep the embers glowing. That's extremely on theme for tonight, maybe a little too on theme, honestly. And thanks so much for listening all the way from Ontario. We love hearing where people listen, what they're into, and what kind of strange atmosphere the show is keeping them company in. And of course, if you want to send us a note, it's shadowpodcast@protonmail.com. All right, we're going to hand it back over to Chris here for some shadow news.
Lovely note that. Fran, thank you very much. And yes, keep the embers glowing is almost suspiciously perfect for Centralia. Got a little bit of recent UFO news here. 3 intriguing videos have surfaced over the past week, starting in California, where a family driving along a highway filmed a cluster of glowing orbs hanging in the night sky. According to the report, the lights then slowly disappeared one by one. Meanwhile, in Missouri, a witness captured daylight footage of a white disc-shaped object said to have hovered overhead for around half an hour before vanishing. And down in Mexico, another early morning sighting showed a strange orb drifting across the sky, adding yet another puzzling clip to the pile. Back to Juniper.
I love that even while we're talking about a fire under a town, the sky still finds a way to get weird too. Thank you, Chris. And now back underground we go. Matt, take us into the second half.
You are tuned to the shadow frequency, where every whisper tells a story from beyond the veil. The darkness continues.
Thanks, Juniper and Fran in Ontario. That sign-off may be the most accidentally ominous one we've had in a while. And Chris, as always, I appreciate a good pile of strange lights before we head back into a buried inferno. Because Centralia really does reach that point where the story quits sounding like a problem on paper and starts sounding like a place reality itself has become unreliable. And one of the most infamous moments came in 1981 when 12-year-old Todd Domboski was nearly swallowed by a sudden sinkhole opened by the mine's fire's damage below. He vanished into a cloud of hot gases and only survived by clinging to a root until his cousin pulled him free. That incident helped drag Centralia out of local concern and into national attention, because once the Earth nearly takes a child in broad daylight, nobody can pretend the danger is theoretical anymore. It means the town is no longer just living over a fire, the town is living over openings into it. And I've got another document here from the folder. It's a photocopy of the Pennsylvania DEP Frequently Asked Questions sheet on the Centralia fire. Again, this is not folklore pamphlet stuff. This is the state, in plain language, laying out what the fire did. One answer explains that the coal pillars left as roof support beneath Route 61 were consumed or weakened by the fire, causing surface subsidence and making the highway unsafe. Repairs were made, but in 1993, Penn DOT closed roughly 4,000 feet of the damaged section and rerouted traffic. Another warning on the DEP site says that the immediate area remains extremely dangerous, with dangerous gases present and ground prone to sudden and unexpected collapse. That matters because Centralia isn't frightening only as a memory. Officially, it is still a hazard landscape, still monitored, still capable of venting toxic gases, still capable of giving way without notice. There is something uniquely unsettling about a place where the government's most honest advice is basically, do not trust what looks solid. Now, to keep our boots on the ground for one moment, this is where I'll give you the one rational check in the room. Nothing about the curse stories is needed to explain how Centralia was destroyed. The fire has a grim, earthly explanation in mining, combustible material, abandoned workings, and decades of failed control efforts. But that doesn't make the mystery vanish, because even the state's own FAQ admits that there have long been multiple plausible theories about exactly how the fire began. The most widely accepted ignition scenario is the borough trash fire. Yeah, but the same official document notes other theories too, including a mine explosion in the 1930s, spontaneous combustion of trash, and vandalism. That uncertainty is where the story starts to breathe strangely again, because once the official version itself has rough edges, people begin filling in the gaps with older fears, older grudges, and older whispers. And that is exactly when a disaster begins turning into a legend. And that is where Father Daniel Ignatius McDermott enters the story, not as documented cause, but as the shadow that hindsight drapes over the whole borough. According to local legend, after conflict tied to the violent Molly Maguire era in Centralia, Father McDermott was assaulted and pronounced that a church would one day be the only structure left standing. I want to be clear about what that is. Legend, not proof. But folklore does not survive because it is tidy. It survives because it attaches itself to places where reality already feels warped. A fire burning since 1962 under streets and graves and empty lots is already close enough to myth that people almost can't help themselves. Even now, the state says the fire area is dangerous and continues to monitor it. A reminder that this is not finished history sealed behind glass. Officially, Centralia is an environmental and industrial catastrophe. Unofficially, it remains one of those American places people talk about in lowered voices, as if the borough did not merely fall, but was slowly claimed by something below that had all the time in the world and may still have more. Centralia may be a real fire with a real cause, but I don't think that makes it less haunting. I think it makes it worse.
I agree, because once a place proves it can become unlivable from underneath, every quiet patch of ground starts feeling like a bit of a lie.
Yeah, that one lingers. A curse would almost be simpler. Centralia gives you history, geology, and dread all at once.
And maybe that's the final chill of it. Whether you hear Centralia as a warning, a legend, or a sentence, the fire below never cared what name people gave it. Juniper, take us home.
That was episode 318, Centralia, Pennsylvania, the town that burned from below. A story of coal, fire, failed rescue efforts, emptied streets, and the kind of folklore that grows when a real disaster becomes too strange to hold in ordinary language. Thanks for joining us tonight on the Shadow Frequency. If you want to reach out, send us an email at shadowpodcast@protonmail.com. And check out our website, shadowfrequencypodcast.com, for episodes, the blog, merchandise, show notes, and more. We'll be back soon with another strange case pulled from somewhere deep in the cabinet. You guys want to say goodnight?
Good night, everybody, and watch where you step.
Good night, all. Mind the ground.
And until next time, keep listening for what moves in the dark.
This episode was conjured with a solemn vow to explore the unexplained while remaining bound to the truths that have been unearthed. All interpretations are speculative and offered only for your enlightenment and your entertainment.